Welcome again to It Doesn't Take a Genius, conversation with introspective perspectives and pithy points of view. Here are your hosts, my friends, Max and Marty.
I think that's Mark and Mike.
Yeah, whatever.
Ramsey!
Mr. Marshall, how are you today?
I'm just fine. Finer than frog hair, as we say in these parts.
We do. I like you have a backdrop on our little Zoom session here of all sorts of words for thanks. So I think I kind of know where we're headed on this one.
Yes, big word in the middle, recognition. There's gratitude, acknowledgement, appreciation, thanks, tribute, praise. Wow, that's quite a word cloud.
I love it.
I think that's some foreshadowing of the topic.
Yes, this is one you have wanted to do for a long time. We have basically just had other things come up that people wanted us to deal with, but we're circling back around to something that's near and dear to your heart. And I'm excited about this. I don't know if you can tell what I've got here, but I've got a picture behind me, Mike, of goats. My parents have goats, have for about 20 years, and I hate them. I just hate them so much. That they're associated with the devil. It's in the Bible, obviously, so I feel justified. But no, it's goats are needy creatures. They are always wanting your attention, and mainly just so they can take from you food, mainly food. Occasionally other things, to be really frank about it. But that's a different podcast that, frankly, you need to make sure children aren't around for. Anyway, the point is, don't be a goat, right? Just don't be the kind of person that's always seen as taking, never paying attention to what the people around you are offering, to where you could be giving them something in the form of feedback, recognition, praise, thanks, all these things that are real gifts that you can give the people around you.
Well, and I think it's so true. And this played out exactly what you're talking about played out. We had a survey that we used for many businesses. And there were two questions. One question was, my manager lets me know when I'm doing things incorrectly.
Yeah.
And we'd get a percentage on that. And then there was the second question was my manager lets me know when I'm doing things right.
Yeah.
And we'd see the percentage, and people would say, like 98% of the time when I'm doing something wrong, my manager lets me know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He lets me know.
Excellent. Right. And then you'd see my manager lets me know when I'm doing something right, 12%.
Right.
And so our goal with that was to get the managers to parity. Yeah. Right, because too much of either one doesn't work for you. If all you ever do is tell me what I'm doing wrong, eventually I just don't want to hear from you anymore.
Right.
And I become immune to it, and it bounces off. If you're always telling me everything's wonderful and how great I am, well, then that sounds a little, as the kids say now, sus. Right? I'm starting to not believe you. So we look for our goal was to get to parity. We know from our research on happiness and recognition and all that, actually it's 5-1.
Right.
And so to have an engaged employee, to have an engaged work environment, you need to let people know that they're doing things right at a ratio of 5 to every corrective or critical comment.
Yeah, and I've seen similar studies that are even more stark than that. If I can cuss to tell a story, I had a manager that looked at the data, and he said, it looks like our people are saying, does he tell me if I'm doing a bad job? Or does he tell me if I'm doing a good job? Yeah. Does he tell me if I'm doing a bad job? Hell yeah. And so that's kind of what we're up against here, is they know what they're going to get from us, and what a gift to hand over to somebody. So we're going to talk about the why this is important, which we're already kind of in the middle of. And then we're going to wrap up giving some ideas about sort of how and what to do to deliver that recognition. Does that sound about right?
Oh, definitely. So, and for those of you listening, we want to always answer the question, what's in it for you?
Yeah.
And so what's in it for you is simply, if you want more of something, recognize and acknowledge when you get that. If you want more people to follow up, recognize and appreciate the people who are following up, right? That person will be reinforced to continue that behavior. The people around him will go, oh, that's very important to the big guy. Maybe I should focus on that as well. So we can beat up the people who aren't doing it, or we could just recognize the people who are and we're talking about the same topic, having the same conversation, only in a more engaging way that's likely to reinforce the behavior that you want more of.
Absolutely. And you and I, thanks to Ford's consumer experience movement that we both are a part of, have had the chance to hear Dr. Kim Cameron, who's, I guess, the father of positive organizational scholarship. I think he would get that credit. And, he kept making the point about the heliotropic effect, the sun-loving effect, that plants turn toward the sun, all their leaves grow toward the sun because it's life-giving. And this is the kind of stuff that, where you put your attention and your focus, that's what's going to grow. If you're going to throw life at it, you're going to see that part of your business, that part of your organization, that side of your team member really come alive.
Oh yeah, well, and you see that, right? We see that when I'll ask a team member and say, do you get feedback on these reports? And they'll always say, or the majority of them say, the only time I see that report is when it's bad.
Yep.
And I see the manager walking through the building with it, and we know that he's going to roll it up into a bat and he's going to beat us with it.
Yep.
I've never seen a good one of those reports.
Yep.
And so just there again, getting back to just at first get the balance, just get the parity, then you can work on that 5-to-1, that 6-to-1 ratio. But if every time you're walking up to them, it's to tell them they're doing something wrong, it is that darkness that you speak of, right? I don't want to be near the darkness, right? But if occasionally you show up and you've got some lightness in the form of recognition and acknowledgement,
right?
I gravitate towards that. I lean in. You'll have my engagement as a team member.
Yeah, I was privileged to get to hear Jimmy Collins speak. Not Jim Collins, but Jimmy Collins, who was I guess he was the president of Chick-fil-A. I don't think he was the CEO. He was the president. And I heard some of his tricks that he would go back and look at the fries in the kitchen, and he'd hold it up. He goes, "You see this fry? Look at this." And then he'd start pointing out, you see how it's brown right here, but there's a crispiness on this side. He would just go through all these really specific observations of that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for. And under him, the organization just really flourished. But it was because he knew the things that he needed them to do to get it to flourish, and he kept pointing those out.
Oh yeah. Show me an example of somebody doing it right, or in this case, an example of a finished product that is what your expectations are.
Yeah.
Because we have such trouble communicating in this world. If you can show me an example, I'm more apt to work towards that vision.
Yeah.
The other thing that we want to address is, okay, so this is what's in it for you. Let's talk about why you don't do it as a leader. And so the most common thing that I hear is, well, it's just me.
Yeah.
And people in a leadership role truly underestimating the power that their role has. Yep. And that their words to harm and to hurt are incredibly powerful. But the flip side of that, the good news is your words to recognize and elevate and appreciate are just as more powerful. So,
100%.
Yeah, we live in a very, in the Midwest where we are, everybody's very humble, and so people don't, well, it's just me, they all know me. I don't think it would be that special. No, it's incredibly special. Yeah. If it comes from a level above, right? So you've been given this role, with this role, they know you're the busiest person on the planet. They know you've got a million other people you could be talking to right now and a million things that you've got to focus on. And yet for this one moment, you're talking to me and you're letting me know that you appreciate what I've done. That is beyond powerful. That is truly a worthy use of your time.
I had a recent experience where one of the managers at one of my clients had a family problem, he got a card from the dealer, and his response to me was, he's just made me an employee for life.
Wow.
Like, he's done. I mean, this was a week later. He said, I've shown it to all my family members. We couldn't stop talking about it. All the things that, probably, to be honest, this guy's a Midwestern modest guy, and he maybe would be embarrassed to even hear us talking about him anonymously, but that's the power of his words, the power of his words, to destroy or to give life, right? And the heliotropic effect here is what we're going for. We want to give life in these moments. So I what I keep coming back to for myself is, and I'm wired this way, but those words, those affirming words, ring in my ears for decades. I'm almost embarrassed to admit it, but that's how I'm wired, is to just really appreciate the fact that I'm appreciated. So, wouldn't you like to give that to your employees? Wouldn't you like to give them that gift, not just for you, but for them, because your words really do matter.
Oh, they do. And it's interesting because everybody wants appreciation, recognition, affirmation, but it's the one thing that as a human being, you cannot ask for.
Right.
And so you can't go to your wife and say, listen, I wish you'd appreciate me more and some of the things I do around here, because the next time she does it, right. Thank you for doing that. Oh, you're just saying that because I asked you. It's tainted. So here's this universal want in the world, yeah. And it's one of the few things you can't ask for. So just if just go with us on this. If you're sitting there and you're skeptical and you're thinking, I don't know about this, just believe me, everybody wants it. And yeah, nobody's brought it up, because if they do bring it up, it's, first of all, it sounds weird and awkward, and second of all, it's now ruined it. So we can't go there. So let's just pretend like we all agree that people like this. This will help us to work together better, help us to achieve our goals. So now let's talk about how do we do this?
How do you do it? Because sometimes you deliver that recognition and it does sort of land flat and feel awkward for the other person. Well, that's because people are wired different ways. So you and I are, I know it's crazy what I just said, but you and I are fans of, I learned to call it the 5 love languages when I was reading the book with my wife when we were newlyweds. And now we talk about the appreciation languages. So should I just run through the 5 of them really quickly, and then we can talk about each of them?
Yeah, run through them. I'll tell you a story of how I screwed it up. And then we'll talk about it.
Fair enough. All right. So the first one is what I was talking about earlier, words of affirmation. I can remember overhearing a client brag on me to some of his people. He didn't know I was there, and I was behind his back, and all of a sudden I heard him say, that Mark is a miracle worker, isn't he? Now look, A, I'm not. B, it just felt really good to know that I was valued, right? So it rings in my ears to this day. That was like in 2002, I think that happened. So words of affirmation, acts of service. So you stop me, Mike, when we get to the one that you screwed up, or if you did all of them, congratulations.
But we'll cover them all, then I'll tell you the ones I messed up.
Okay. Acts of service is the second one, doing things to help the people that you're trying to recognize. Gifts. Now, gifts is a fairly loose word. We could talk about lots of different kinds of gifts, but gifts of some kind. Quality time, spending time together, and then physical touch, being affirmed, appreciated through physical touch. So there's our list. Mike, do you want to hit us with your story?
Well, yeah. So I'm new into this marriage thing, and like the wife's birthday is coming, and so I go out, wash, wax, detail her car. right? It takes hours, right? I make this thing is sparkling. It's immaculate. This thing is just glistening. And she comes home and I go, honey, check out what I did for you. Yeah, ta-da! And she goes, oh, that's nice. And I'm thinking words in my head that are not good words. Right. And so this happens later on. So the wife is gone. I proactively, without being asked, vacuum the entire house. Right. Clean all the floors, vacuum, right? Wife comes home and I said, ta-da! And she goes, oh yeah, that's nice. I'm like, oh, it's so over. This is, And then I read this book, right? And I figured out that what I was doing was acts of service.
Yep.
Right. I'm going to do things. I'm going to take this off your plate. I'm going to do this for you. And what I found out was that my wife is a quality time person.
Mm.
So she was much more impressed when she walks into my office and I set my phone down and I spin my chair around and I look at her when she's talking to me.
Yeah.
Apparently they like this.
Yeah. A quality moment.
Yeah. So just spending some quality time being completely present. And so I don't wash the car anymore. I'm back in the house. But I do find that a form of recognition for her is just listen, right? Just be present and listen. And so what I figured out in all that is I'm an active service person. And I decided that everyone else was an active service person.
Yep.
And while it was appreciated and the recognition was well received, it wasn't as powerful as recognizing someone in their preferred communication language, their recognition language.
Right. And the fun of that is you kind of had to know your wife to be able to effectively appreciate her. So, that in and of itself is kind of can I say a caring thing to do, a loving thing to do, to say, I know, and interesting, the same gentleman who won a lifetime employee, he has another employee who said, you wouldn't believe, he sat down with me and he said, you know what, when's the last time you had some time off? I think you need, to have some time off. And why don't you? And he laid out this vacation idea. And the manager said, wow, you've been listening. That's exactly the kind of thing I like. He goes, yep. And you need to be on the third floor and it's got to face the beach. There were all these things that he had heard his person say. So I think that's probably that's another example of quality time, because it's clear that the boss man was listening. But in a general sense, do you know which of the 5 it is for each of your people? Because they're going to feel so valued when you do that. You're making employees for life through this whole experience.
Oh, you're so right. And so one of the exercises that I do after I introduce this to a management team is my before I come back is for them to figure out what each of their team members' preferred language is. They all work, but there is one that works better than others. And then they're like, well, how do I do that? I said, it's very easy. Just like my example, watch how they recognize other people. And so if they give other people quality time as recognition, if they perform acts of service, if they give people, they're the person who, hey, I appreciate you helping me out yesterday. Here's some cookies, right? They're probably a tangible gifts person. If they at the meeting recognize someone who helped them at the meeting, right? They're probably a public words of affirmation person.
Yep.
So all you have to do is watch what they do and you'll have a pretty good sense of what their preferred language is, just like my example.
Yeah, that's great. Now, I want to talk about something before we wrap up that I think is going to be on some people's minds, thanks to our current social climate and the pandemic. Touch. I remember an episode of Friends where Chandler has a new boss and he smacks him on the rear end. Everybody gets smacked on the rear end, as a thank you. And by the time the episode's over, Chandler has actually kind of gone from, I can't believe he did that, to he's not doing it because I asked him, and now I kind of feel left out. And I'm not sure that, that's a sitcom, and I'm not sure how any of this plays out. And I'm not sure that anybody in this day and age is going to be smacking anybody on the rear end. But then again, I'm not sure we're going to be shaking hands and high-fiving for a lot of individuals too. So Mike, how do you think touch shows up in the workplace in a way that's, I guess I want to say legitimate? It's a real thing. I'm kind of a touch guy too. I love getting a hug, but what's that look like in the workplace?
Well, I think it's interesting because in the book, the 5 love languages, physical touch played a much more prominent role as one of the languages.
Right.
In the book, the workplace book, the 5 languages of appreciation, physical touch was reduced to a much smaller chapter and much less emphasis, just because you didn't want HR to ban the book
right.
In your place of business. So, but there are, and we still see it to this day, right? Nobody's shaking hands, but in the workplace, you still see the fist bump. I see the Rocky Horror Picture Show elbow touch.
Yep.
You see a pat on the back.
Yep.
And then in some rare instances with masks and people turning their heads the opposite way, there is some hugging going on.
Yeah, the side hug, absolutely.
Yeah, the side hug, let's turn our heads the opposite way, a little hug. So I think you have to be incredibly careful with that. And you do get a sense of, like I said, if somebody's always fist bumping you, they're probably a physical touch person and would appreciate when they do something great, a fist bump in return.
Yeah.
So we can't discount it. And in some cases, we have to look for what is their secondary language of appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of times, you've got your primary and then your secondary. And so if the physical touch one is off limits, and maybe it's because we're in a virtual space,
right,
and we're not even in present with each other, then figuring out the other language of appreciation that's secondary to that becomes the second most powerful way to recognize people. So be careful. You don't want HR to make you watch a movie and sign some forms,
right,
for inappropriate whatever. So be careful with it, but know that, and you know who they are. They're the huggers, the fist bumpers, the pat on the back people. That's how they show appreciation.
Right. Well, I thought we better go there on the hot button of the moment, just to make sure we don't leave any curiosity out there. So I guess to wrap this up, I think what I'm hearing, as I'm just sort of reflecting on what we've talked about here, is all of this is pointed toward real relationships. Maybe that's maybe I'm drawing too quick of a line between the two dots here, but yes, this is about the business growing. Yes, this is about you coming out of your shell and expressing that recognition, what have you. But none of this really works unless it's some sort of relationship where I've been present enough to pay attention to you, that I know where you bring value, and I'm somehow able to communicate that to you by slowing down and taking the time to do it. That's not going to happen unless there's a relationship there. Is that too stark the way I've painted that?
No, I think you're exactly right, because part of the relationship is getting to know people. And
that's the word.
As Johari, your window says, we got to expand the arena, right? What I know about you. And it's interesting because in that arena, there's things that I know about you that you may not know about yourself. So because I'm thinking about this, you may not, like me, I didn't know I was an acts of service person.
Right.
But other people have discovered that about me. And so and then once I got caught up to speed, now this is something that both of us know. I know it and you know it.
Yeah.
And so that makes it easier to have a relationship the more you understand anything about the other person.
Yeah,
and
so good.
And something this important is part of that, is a big part of that. So
well, Mike, I just want you to know that my wife has called me to lunch, and she is a quality time person. So I think we're on the downhill slope on this, but just wanted to throw that out there, that I'm going to practice what I preach.
Well, and I appreciate that you let me know, and I appreciate that you put family as such a high priority in your life.
Those words of affirmation mean so much to me. Thank you so much.
Oh, it is my pleasure to recognize your awesomeness. So I think all right, I'll leave you with the last thing here, and you kind of touched upon it. So you did a good job recognizing someone when they go tell someone else what happened.
Yes.
So in your case, you heard these words.
Yeah.
He told the whole family, right? I've told I've showed everybody the card, right? Whatever it is. And so when it rises to the level that they want to share it with someone else, then you're on the right track.
Yeah.
You're doing a great job. The last thing on this point that I learned from talking with managers about this issue is one of the things that comes up is, well, what if it's insincere? I said, well, are there hundreds more opportunities to recognize people than you're taking advantage of?
Yeah.
And they go, oh yeah, there's good stuff going on around here all the time that I never say anything about.
Yeah.
All right. So just, you don't have to go make up something that would be insincere.
Yeah.
Just pick one of the hundreds of good things that people are doing around you and just call that out and recognize that and appreciate it. That's completely sincere. So while you are looking for it, and maybe you've set it as a goal, I want to recognize 5 people a week, and I want to see it and say it. I want to see them doing something good, and it's not enough to see it, but I also have to say something to them. And I'm going to do that 5 times a week, right? I'm going to keep track on my habit tracker. And so that's not an insincere, because there was probably 200 opportunities to recognize somebody that week. You got 5. And maybe a month from now, you'll raise your goal to 7. Completely sincere, completely focused, and working to become a better leader is always in fashion.
And given our 6-to-1 statistic from earlier, you probably can err on the side of giving more praise than less, and it's going to be a help, not a hindrance. So
definitely. Yeah. You may just get the parity, which would be wonderful.
Right.
Good first start.
Right.
All right. Speaking of words of affirmation and positive encouragement, let's turn our attention to our announcer.
And that's it. Join us next time when you'll hear Mike say, well, I'm sure he'll say something pithy. Don't miss it. Next time, it doesn't take a genius.
That's good enough.